Hello and welcome to another day on Cornwall Pocket Farm, where I try and figure out how to live more sustainably on 300 square metres in the city. Today is another one of my capsule wardrobe videos, because obviously that's my passion and my drive at the moment, is to get these items of clothing together for my trip, which is fast approaching. So this is pretty much the second to last garment in my original vintage inspired capsule wardrobe. I'll put a link up to the video just up here in case you haven't seen that original video where I actually planned out all of the items and really wrapped my head around what a capsule wardrobe means and try to sort of form a few rules, guidelines type of things around it so that I could make a capsule wardrobe that would work really well for me and also sort of for all of the use cases that I had. This is the second to last garment. This is the Carmen top. The last thing I have in the original capsule wardrobe is the Carmen jacket, and that hopefully, fingers crossed, if I manage to do it, will be next week's video. So you could be thinking, oh dear, there's only 2 more videos left. However, there will be bonus episodes because really I don't think it's ever over until it's over, and I still have a few weeks left before I go. And of course, as I've been going along, I have been thinking, oh, and it would be nice to have a pair of trousers in this capsule wardrobe, and oh, a few extra tops would be helpful. And yeah, so there's a few other things coming onto this channel that I'm going to have a go at making. And yeah, I will probably just stop when I run out of time. I want to leave time at the end to do a sort of a everything with everything, try on all the computations, if you like, of all of the items in the capsule wardrobe and what they will look like together. I'd like to do a video like that at the end as a sort of a wrap-up, but apart from that I thought I'd just keep going and keep making more items and of course videoing them and sharing them with you. So, Carmen top. It was challenging. I knew it was going to be challenging, which is why I started it in a long weekend so that I had more time. It actually took that long weekend and then most of the following weekend as well. So yeah, it was quite an ask. I have never made a wrap top before. I have never even worn a wrap top before, if truth be told. And I didn't have any solid patterns that I could do the wrap top off. So it was all a mass experiment of me just basically drafting something from what I had at hand and what I could learn on the internet and YouTube and things like that. And then doing, I think I did 3 mock-ups. And I am quite pleased with the fit in the end. The whole plan of this was to basically end up with a pattern that then I could use, a pattern that would fit me and fit me well, a pattern that then I could use after that to make maybe further wrap tops, maybe have a go at a wrap dress. There's lots of options. Now I have this original pattern that fits. So pleased with that. And I think it goes really nicely with the Carmen skirt as well. And I think it looks really 40s. I'm really pleased with the way it looks. It looks like a lot of the 40s illustrations of the dresses that I was trying to sort of emulate. So really pleased with that. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on with the video, the making of the Carmen top. Don't look over here on Audrey. There's lots of almost finished projects over there waiting to be completed, but it's a long weekend and that's a bit boring, and I've decided that I'm going to do a new project this weekend. I'm going to work on the Carmen top because it's a bit tricky because I know what I want to do and I don't have a pattern that is anything like that. I have these 3 patterns which are sort of close, shall we say. I have this one which is a sort of it has the grown on sleeve and the buttons down the front, but it's not asymmetric and I want an asymmetric top. I have this one which is an asymmetric top and has the shape that I want. I don't want this bit here, but I want to come down there, but I want this crossover body. But this has a raglan sleeve and it's out of stretch fabric, so that's not ideal either. And then I have this pattern that my daughter lent me, which is a wrap top. So it has the crossover body, doesn't have any sleeves, and it wraps all the way around and it ties up the back. And again, not what I want, because I'd rather close it with buttons, and I'd rather not go all the way around the back and add in all that fabric and bulk and all the rest of it. So these 3 patterns I have to hand. I also have my bodice block, which is sort of like the base pattern that you generally adapt to make other things. And I have looked at some videos on the Closet Historian. If you haven't checked out the Closet Historian on YouTube, do go and have a look, because she has a whole pattern drafting playlist on her channel. Between all this information, the YouTube video, these 3 patterns, and my block, I'm going to try and draft something that will work for the Carmen. I know exactly what I want it to look like. I tried to draw it and I can tell what it's supposed to represent, but I wouldn't for 1 minute show you, because it is certainly not the sort of you know, fashion design artistic drawings that you see. It's a really lame sort of outline of what I'm trying to do. But essentially what I want is I want a grown on sleeve. I want it to cross the body here, and I want to put buttons down here. I want it to come down so that I can tuck it into my skirt. And obviously it needs to have some sort of band around the edge. What I also want to do is try to put some pleats at the top here, sort of like they had in the 40s. You know, in the 40s shirts, they generally had a little yoke, and then they had sort of these pleats that would come from here. So I want to try and do that into this wrap top, because I think that would look quite vintage, and it would also pick up the pleats that are on the Carmen. So the Carmen skirt you would have seen by now, because I would have released that video. But essentially, if you look here, hopefully you can see, I've got these pleats which come down here, which result in these sort of floofs. and these pleats, I'd like to do a sort of a mini version of that, sort of on the shoulder, with these floofy bits basically being the extra fabric needed to go over the bust. So that's my idea. Whether I can actually get this into being as an actual thing, I'm not sure yet. But hey, this whole experimental capsule wardrobe thing has been about breaking boundaries and trying new things. So I'm going to give it a whirl. So the first job is to get out some paper. And of course we need to find the right blocks. Fitted bodice, block. Right, I need the front and the back, and I don't need the sleeve. So now I'll just draw around these blocks as they are. Then check out the YouTube video again and see if I can do the alteration on here to make it a grown on sleeve. That's the first job. Okay, well, I have followed Bianca's instructions, the Closet Historian, and I have made an all-in-one bodice block front and back pattern. I did have to take off the, my bodice block has a sort of a below the waist piece, and I had to take that off to do this alteration. Her bodice blocks don't have the extra piece on, so I'll have to presumably figure out how to add those bits on afterwards, but we'll get to that later. Right, now what I need to do is trace this onto a new bit of paper. I'm going to keep these as standard grown on sleeve or all-in-one sleeve bodice blocks, and then I'm going to try and make the adjustments that I want to make it a sort of an asymmetric crossover body pattern thing. Yeah, that's the next step. Okay, it's the next day now. I did manage to spend Thursday sort of afternoon, evening figuring out the pattern, mostly. So I did the block adjustment like the Closet Historian told me to do. I think I've done it right. And then I got all the patterns out and I tried to work out this cross piece, and I wasn't really getting very far with that. I should have explained that the back piece is pretty simple. Essentially, I changed the sleeve to, you can see it's a bit more boxy now. I changed the sleeve to the grown-on sleeve, the all-in-one sleeve, And because it didn't really affect my central dart, I could just carry on with the lower part, because obviously I want this to tuck into my skirt. So I want it to come down sort of to hip length. So that worked really easily, and I was on a roll. I put the seam allowance on, feeling good. Then we started on the front. So the problem with the front is that I took the dart that was down here and moved all that that sort of fullness up to the shoulder, because remember, I want the shoulder pleats at the top. But of course then I had to add on the below the waist part so that I could tuck it in. That's a bit of a trick, because of course the shape of the join has all changed now, and I did watch another one of her videos which was sort of how you put the bottom piece back onto the top. I'm not quite sure if I've achieved that exactly, but anyway, yeah, it's good enough, I think, for now. Then I tried to work out the sort of the slope, the piece, because of course each of these side pieces is now going to have this other piece that crosses the other half to come down to here. The two pattern pieces will be the same, if you like, but essentially, is it asymmetric? If it's the same? I don't know. It feels like an asymmetric top, but both sides will be the same. Okay, I have sort of mocked it up. As you can see now, I've done something wrong at the bottom here because this is really tight. I just pinned it. I've just pinned it here, and I have sewn all this half, if you like. So that bit, it's fitting well on the back, but on the front, this is really tight. So that I've obviously done something wrong there. I just need to add some more fabric in here. The other thing is I feel that the sleeve is too big and too low, because when I turn around like this, you can sort of see in the armhole, which is not what I want. So I did follow her instructions to sort of drop this seam, you know, this sort of the armhole, but I think I'll take it back up again. I think that's just too low for me. I've done a little bit of a pleating type affair up here, and I'm quite pleased with that. That seems to work okay. And then what I've done is I've left this big piece of fabric standing out here, because then I'm going to sort of put it on the mannequin and sort of pleat it so that it comes through here. I might mark on here with a pin or a dot or something where I need it to come through, and also where I need it to join up. But yeah, as a first attempt and a bit of a mock-up, I'm pretty pleased with that. Yeah, I think that's not bad at all. So, and obviously this fabric is very stiff. It's sort of I got it ages ago. It's a big roll of curtain lining fabric, and I got it very cheaply, and it works brilliantly for mock-ups, but it is sort of stiffer than the fabric that I will be using. What I've decided to do is do some draping. Now, I should warn you, I've never draped anything before in my life. So it's going to be a complete first for me and the channel. I'm going to try draping on Audrey over here. First of all, I have to clear off all the stuff that's sitting here, but then what I'm going to do is make a mock-up, if you like, of the back and then the front pieces. I've left lots of extra fabric on the other side. Then I'm going to try and drape what I want to get the shape right, and then cut off anything I don't want. Then I can hopefully flatten it out and draw the pattern like that. That's the plan at the moment. We're going to give it a whirl and see if it's as easy as it sounds. Okay, we're in my very tiny sewing room. I've cleared Audrey off and brought her out into the main part of the room. I'm hoping that you can see okay. I've zoomed you in just a little bit, but I don't know if you can see, I've got these pleats that I've put in down here, and what I'd quite like to do is sort of have a bit of a pleaty situation up here, so I get a couple of little pleats and then make the pleats sort of bigger as they come down. So I'm just gonna sort of pin that in. Yeah, sort of like that. And then And I pinned this a bit when it was on me. I sort of pinned a few sort of bits and pieces. And then this bit will go around there. And yeah, and pin on there. Yeah, they make it look a lot easier on the videos. Probably what I need to do is sort of pull it out and cut fabric off and then pleat it in the right way. I'll try that and I'll bring you back if I get any further on with this draping thing. And once you've done it, of course, you've then got to try and make sense of it on the pattern. Tricky dicky. Yeah, I think a bit like that. I think what I need to do now is cut off this excess with a seam allowance, and then what I'm going to do is just use a marker pen and actually draw in the lines, and then hopefully when I take it all apart it'll become clear to me how it all goes together. Okay, well, it's an experiment, isn't it? Okay, this is the drawing I have. That is the pleaty fold bit, and I chopped it off at the bottom, so this is a sort of a shape. So what I need to do now probably is just copy that, smooth it out and make it a bit more sensible onto the pattern, and then do a full mock-up, I think, of it sort of with the pleats in, just to make sure that it works in real life. I've made some other alterations. I've made the sleeve smaller here. I've reduced the size of that. So on this front piece here, I've actually added in some width as well. I'm not quite sure what happened. I think when I looked, I think I'd lost a dart. So I've added in some more width on that. So hopefully when I do it again, all with those amendments, it should work. Fingers crossed. Okay, slight change of plan. What I've decided to do, because the pleating on the front was getting very complicated, and I thought actually it would be better to have a very simple wrap top and then to add that pleating bit on afterwards as a sort of an edging piece. If I decided to do that, that would give me a basic wrap over, crossover top that I could use for other things, and it would be a very useful pattern. So hopefully you can see I have put the pleats in the shoulder, and then what I have done is I have tried to pin a line that is going to be a good wrap over top on me, and then what I'm going to do is cut that line, and then any edging that I put on I can actually just add on whatever I want after that, but it gives me a basic top to work with. I have just swatch my hand over. I have changed the sleeves, so I've made those much smaller now, and I'm happier with that look. I've got a range of motion, everything's working. It just seems to be a better fit for my arms, the size they are. So yeah, that sort of works okay. I think I've added a bit more room around the middle, but I sort of do want this quite fitted. I think with a wrap top you need to have a certain level of tension to hold this together. I think we're there. Enough that I'm going to go to the fashion fabric, I think. Well, certainly enough that I'm going to draft up this panel piece, which hopefully, fingers crossed, she said, again, shouldn't be too hard. That's my catchphrase, isn't it? It shouldn't be too hard, and then it is. But anyway, I think we're almost there. Let me show you the pattern, the paper pieces that it has taken to cobble this together. So this, this is the pattern that it has taken to get this right. It looks more like origami, doesn't it? I mean, oh my lord. Look, and then the back. Obviously, when the closet historian does it, it doesn't look anything like that. But yeah, well, I don't know what I'm doing. So that's this is what my pattern looks like. But I think we have the shapes, the curves, the pleat marks, all the bits and pieces, the seam allowance. I think it's all in the right places now. Yay! And the other thing that I'm really excited about is that once I get this right, I will have this pattern. Obviously, I will trace it onto something so it doesn't look the mess that it does, because it's not going to stay together very long like that, is it? Once I've finished it all up, I will trace it onto paper, and I might even trace it onto cardboard and make it as a block that I can use for my, you know, it'll be a grown-on sleeve, an all-in-one sleeve, crossover wrap top block, which would be quite useful, I think, to knock up some fairly quick tops in the future. Okay, right, let's work on the panel now. I need to basically have a sort of lapel, should we say, that comes along there. That, I think, should be reasonably easy. Don't say it, Jenny, just don't say it. I'm going to have a go at that anyway. We have a front pattern. We have a back pattern. We have a neck piece and a neck facing on the front lapel, and we have a back neck facing. Well, that wasn't hard at all, was it? All we've got to do now is put it together and hope it works. That's the trick. That now I only have this top left over on my sewing table. At the end of last weekend, I have to admit, I was feeling a bit low. I had a choli blouse which was sort of half made, and I hadn't got the zip in it, and I hadn't done the trim, and I hadn't finished it or anything like that. I had a skirt that I sort of thought, oh, I wanted pockets, and I didn't quite have pockets, and I hadn't got the catches on, and there were finishing on the hem and bits and pieces to do. Plus I had this top on the go, the Carmen top, that wasn't behaving itself at all. I was trying to do some bits, pieces, and it wasn't working, and I came to the conclusion that essentially I needed to rethink this top a little bit. So I had the 3 projects on the go, and I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed and a bit frustrated with it all. So I decided to clear the decks. I decided the choli blouse was going to be that week's video, so I had to finish that. Zip, finishing, trim, sleeve adornment. You would have seen that video. It would have come out a week, 2 weeks ago by now, because I'm filming ahead, of course, remember. I'm now filming this project, and you're probably a couple of videos behind at this time. Anyway, so I decided to get that project out first. That was brilliant. This skirt, then I decided to finish all that. That was going to be the next project, finished and on the rank, ready for video production, just leaving me this top. Of course, next weekend I will start another project, as is my wont, but this weekend I've decided was going to be a sort of a rationalization, a sort of a sorting out of finishing. I also had a workshop that I was doing through Secret Gardens yesterday, which took the majority of the day. So I knew that this weekend I wasn't going to be able to knock out a whole project, so I thought, great, I'll just use this weekend as a tidying up, finishing off, getting everything sorted, and getting back on track. So where are we with the Carmen top? I was trying to figure out some sort of neckline that would match and mimic the skirt pleating and detail. I tried doing some draping on the top itself. Then I decided that I was going to do just a normal top and leave this draping piece as a separate bit that I would attach. Coming back to that, one of the C's in my 6C system for my capsule wardrobe, I'll link up to the video here where I cover my 6 C's concept. And one of them, of course, is character. And the character of you. Who are you and what do you want to look like? And that's the bit where I went, I'm not a very complicated, decorative person up top. I mean, I can do a pattern. I like a pattern, but I don't like a lot of frill and floof, shall we say. I like quite neat things, quite neat things. Certainly on my top half, I like things quite neat and fitted. So I decided all this draping and things that I'd gone to a lot of effort trying to make work and spent many hours trying to figure out. I decided to scrap it because, you know, sometimes if things aren't working and it's just not going your way, sometimes the best thing to do is just scrap that and do something else. And I feel much happier now I have done that. I have cut the neckline down, I have made it very simple, and now I'm just going to do a very simple band, probably with a little sort of collar, a little bit like this one on the front, like a little bit of a sort of a, what they used to call it, I mean in my day, years ago when I was young, they used to call it a granddad collar. I don't know, I think they call it a Mao collar now. That's what it is. A little bit of a sort of Mao collar at the top and then going into the crossover. That is my plan and I'm much happier with that. So that's what I'm going to do next. This is where we are with the basic wrap top. I've just put a little pin in there, but I don't know if you can see close up. The light's not great in here at the moment, but I'm really pleased with the way these little pleats are working. And I think that is giving enough detail on this top. When I had all the drapey stuff going on here, it was just a bit too much on me. I mean, it looked fine on Audrey when I was draping it on the mannequin, but of course Audrey isn't me. When I put it on myself, it just looked a bit, So the crossover is happening in a good sort of spot here. I've only got the one pin holding it on, so the fit is not perfect. But I thought actually I'll just put a very simple edging on here and then say maybe a little bit of a Mao collar. This obviously, all this lower part of course will be tucked in, and I'll need to figure out some way of connecting over here the underneath panel, and then also how I'm going to connect this over here. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm really quite pleased with the way those pleats are working. The crossover is at the right height. I think once I get the edging on, it will be a nice, neat fit. It doesn't gape. That's the biggest problem with wrap tops. You know, if you lean over, it's all gonna gape, and it's not doing that. It's sitting quite nicely. So yeah, really pleased with the fit of that now, and I know what I'm going to do moving forward. Okay, we're making progress with the top. So I've attached the collar. So difficult to sort of see, but I put a bit of a Mao collar on this piece here at the top, and then I've just added a really simple band onto it. Now I'm trying to finish with some bias binding the inside of this wrap, and I'm also trying to figure out how to connect the side bits, because of course the way this works is that it only crosses through to here, and I haven't got, well, all I've got is flat fabric, which is quite a fine linen, so I don't have any sort of anything solid to sort of attach a button or anything like that. So what I'm trying to do is bring a piece from the side seam to hold these two pieces. So the way I'm doing it, hopefully you can see here, I've made a little sort of like belty flappy thing, I suppose, and I've just attached it into the side seam, and then the idea is that that will go across, and then the flap will be able to be buttoned onto that, either directly on the inside piece or from the one that wraps over the top. The button will sort of go through the outside fabric into this to give it a little bit more stability and actually be pulling from the side seam rather than just pulling on this flimsy fabric, which I don't think would be very good. Yeah, I can't really think of any other way of doing this. I've never made a wrap top before. To be perfectly honest with you, I've never even worn a wrap top before, so I don't really have much of an idea of how these go together. When I looked at the other patterns, those patterns that I was looking at, the wrap top that my daughter gave me, obviously that goes, the straps go all the way around, then come back to the front and tie, or they tie at the back. So there isn't any connection into the actual garment. And then the other one that was the stretch fabric, which sort of came across and buttoned here, when I actually looked at it, it was lined, it was fully lined, and that lining piece then had some sort of interfacing at that point to sort of give it some more structure. Of course, I didn't have any of that in this, so I'm just making it up as I go along. Yeah, hopefully it'll work. Figuring out something from scratch without a pattern, there's always a bit of head scratching goes on. I'll get on with this detail, and then it might be the reveal after this. Yeah, I think once I've done this detail, done a bit of finishing, done the hemming, we might be going to the reveal.